word to wise. Grass only greener when it's fertilized. Gave them truth in these songs, they prefer to lies. Destiny beautiful, adrift in her purple lies. You can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's your boy Ernie, the Blerd Without Fear. Welcome back to the channel. Alright, so today's video, we're going to be talking about
Captain Planet, he's our hero, gonna take pollution down to zero.
That's right, Captain Planet #1 came out just a little while ago, and I know some of you are probably wondering, yo, Blerd, wait, you are late to the party, my guy. Why are you only just now telling us about Captain Planet? Well, the reason why is because I actually did an interview with the series writer David Pepose about Captain Planet months ago, which I do highly advise. If you haven't checked that out, you should, check it out up here, because David, well, yeah, you probably already read issue 1, or if you haven't yet, whichever the case is, he gave some really awesome insights on what he has planned for the series that you might want to check out and might give you even more reason to want to go pick up the series. Now, another thing, is the reason why I haven't talked about this is because I have a new video series that I do every week called Best Comics This Week, and it's where I pick 5 comics that I thought were the best comics that came out on New Comic Book Day each and every week. I've been doing the series for the past, I think by this point, 3 months now. And yeah, I do that as well as give you insights on what books you need to be putting in your pull box. This comic that we're talking about in today's video is one of those comics. And I did that, maybe a couple of months ago as well. And I also talked about this book on Best Comics This Week, the week that the issue came out. So yeah, make sure you hit that subscribe button and tap that notification bell, so that way you don't miss out on videos like that, because YouTube doesn't really like to promote them. Anyway, let's talk about Captain Planet. So Captain Planet, he's a hero, gonna take pollution down to 0. And unfortunately, he's not gonna do it all in this first issue, but he's already well on his way to trying. And what this is a reimagining of the original Captain Planet and the Planeteers animated series from back in the 90s. The show that came out literally at the start of the 90s, in 1990 to be precise, and ran for 5 seasons. This was a show that, honestly, I think a lot of people loved to make fun of Captain Planet because it seemed like such a hokey idea to make a show about an eco-friendly superhero. But, considering with the benefit of hindsight, it is one of those stories that I think we need to hear and see now more than ever, because in this particular instance, we're taking that Captain Planet and the Planeteer story and basically updating it under a modern lens. We're not transported back to the 1990s. We are very firmly in the 2020s. And in this particular instance, Captain Planet, he has been taken down by the forces of Lucian Plunder. I know some of you are probably thinking, wait, isn't it Luton Plunder? Well, in this particular instance, he's not quite Luton Plunder just yet. He may never be, but he is Lucian. He does go by Lucian in the series. And Plunder's forces have already taken Captain Planet out of the picture. By the time you start this series off, Gaia, who in the original animated series is quite literally Mother Nature and the spirit of the Earth itself, charged with protecting it and keeping it harmonious and peaceful and, above all else, eco-friendly. In this particular instance, Gaia is already the wielder of the 5 Planeteer rings. She controls all aspects of the elements, ranging from earth, fire, wind, water, and heart. But when she's facing off with Lucian Plunder's forces, she needs to summon the avatar of the elements itself, Captain Planet. And we get to see what I think is a pretty cool looking updated version of the character, where many aspects of the elements are part of his design. And I think that's actually a nice little extra added touch to this character to make him look just a little bit different, and also help him pass a silhouette test. Because in the initial run, Captain Planet had no real defining qualities outside of his blue skin and his really awesome mullet. Now, you probably heard me say silhouette test, and you're probably thinking to yourself, what the hell is that? A silhouette test is something that many artists use that help them dictate whether or not a superhero can be picked out of a lineup or just simply be recognized based on their shadow alone. And looking at Captain Planet's shadow, I mean, yeah, I think most people who were raised in the 90s who grew up with this character, you would probably be able to figure out very quickly who he is, or at least get a rough idea of who he is, just based on the mullet itself. But ultimately, I think in this particular instance, we're updating this for a new generation, so yeah, you gotta add a little something extra onto it. And not to mention, mullets are not in season anymore, thankfully, but he doesn't have a mullet anymore. So if you were just to look at a silhouette of Captain Planet, you know, without any of the extra designs that have been added onto him, he would look just like any other bog standard superhero in a silhouette test. But adding in the rocky formations for his shoulders and, you know, kind of showing how and you wouldn't see this in the silhouette test, but, you know, outside of the silhouette test, showing how the vines kind of flow into the Planeteer symbol. And, you know, also, of course, having his trademark blue skin and kind of aqua green hair, so on and so forth. All this stuff is just, you know, kind of ways to showcase the elements that he houses within himself. And we get to see him go off for a little bit. He gets to cut loose on Lucian Plunder's forces. But by the time we get through the first act of this issue, we are already moved off to the Planeteers. And the rest of the book is largely about how they get their Planeteer rings. Something that we do get to see in the original animated series, but here we're seeing it under somewhat slightly different circumstances. And each of these characters have been updated in such a way so that they feel more natural. Characters like Kwame, who is effectively the leader of the team, you know, outside of Captain Planet himself. But Kwame, who hails from Ghana, in this particular instance, he has a little bit more going on with his character. Each of these characters has like a little bit of extra meat on the bones of their story, so that way you can get to know them a little bit better, kind of know where they're at in life. Kwame, in this particular instance, has recently suffered what might be a career-ending soccer injury, and now he's just kind of sitting around watching the big games and, you know, just trying to live out his life, which is why he has his walking stick. He's got the Stone Cold Steve Austin knee brace and everything popping off. And in this particular instance, it's when a tidal wave ends up hitting Ghana, something that part of me wonders if it has anything to do with some stuff that happens later in the issue because of all the different things each of the characters are dealing with. Whereas, you know, and I'll get to Guy here in a little bit, but the Earth Ring winds up on Kwame's hand without him even realizing it because he's caught in the middle of what is a natural disaster. So he's not even thinking about the fact that a ring has appeared on his fingers until it's too late, and the ring is already doing what it needs to do, raising trees out of the ground to save all of the various people who are being chased down by this rogue tidal wave. And just in a brief couple of pages, we already know Kwame's character. I mean, granted, yeah, if you've ever watched the cartoon, you know what his character is, but I feel like for those who are not familiar with Captain Planet, you know off rip what Kwame is capable of and what he's willing to stand up for. As it says in this, it says his resolve is stronger than stone, which is why he's given the power of the earth, how and why he's able to control all of the elements of the earth. And we see later with Wheeler, Wheeler is working at a Detroit automotive plant that has just recently caught fire. Now, we spend probably the least amount of time with Wheeler himself as a character, that he's probably the one character other than Mati we spend the least amount of time with. But Wheeler, who in this particular instance is who looks a fair bit older, at least. All these characters are actually older than what they originally were, but Wheeler has the power of fire. We see him pulling someone out of the fire who was left behind. All the firefighters thought they got most everybody out, but Wheeler was still in there, and Wheeler helped save the life of another person. We see him later holding up the ring and being told that his heart forever burns for justice, which is why he's given the ring of fire. And we later see with Linka, who probably has one of the, I won't say the most dramatic, you know, glow up per se, but I feel like Linka, she's definitely been updated for the current day times. As we see, you know, she's still in Russia as what you would probably more likely expect, but we also see that she has a very clear attitude about the leadership of Russia. And for those that don't know what I'm talking about, she's directly talking about Vladimir Putin. And while I can't speak necessarily to exactly how far or deep it's going to delve into the Russia-Ukrainian situation right now, I do feel like David has not really been shying away from any hard issues. And there are characters in this, I mean, really, Lucian Plunder being one of them. If you look at him, you can tell very clearly who he's modeled after, at least in terms of not just, you know, the original cartoon, but modeled after in real life. And while it remains to be seen whether or not Linka is still a computer tech by any stretch of the imagination, in this particular instance where we're introduced to her, she's a singer in a punk rock band whose lyrics, as you would imagine for a punk band, are quite political. In this case, focusing on eco-activism, with the ring calling out to her saying that you would fight until your last breath, hence why she wields the power of wind. In the case of Guy, she's probably the least changed of all the characters, with probably the one main thing being that she actually has a very distinct Asian heritage, where, not to say she didn't have it in the original animated series, but originally they never really told you exactly where in Asia Guy was from. You kind of just had to guess based on the types of people that she normally spoke about, who she grew up with or went to school with, or her parents, but it was never really explicitly stated. They would just always say, oh yeah, she's from Asia. Because, well, in this particular case, she is South Korean. And one thing that I really enjoy about this is, well, yeah, she is one of the least changed. She has kind of leveled herself up in some ways, because now she is a marine biologist, which goes pretty hand in hand with her ability to control water because of her water ring. With the ring stating that her wisdom is fluid and ever-changing, hence why she's been gifted the power of water. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, one of the things that Kwame had to deal with was a rogue tidal wave. Well, we see that that's one of the things that Guy has to deal with in this issue. So in this particular instance, her having to stave off a tidal wave, I don't know if this is the case. It seems kind of improbable, but it would be kind of funny if that very same tidal wave she stayed off, even though it happens later in the issue, if that was something that ended up coming her way, or coming Kwame's way rather, because of her, or if what Kwame did earlier in the issue, staving off the tidal wave in Ghana, if that shifted something back in her direction. It would be interesting to find out if it's probably not as deep as I'm trying to make it out to be, but it's very interesting. But yeah, Guy is there, and once again, I think that, of any of the characters, she's probably the least of them that's changed. And also Kwame is probably also, it's not even so much that, either one of these characters are, it's not to say they're the least changed, but they're the ones whose changes aren't as obvious in the story. We'll put it like that. The character who is the absolute most changed in this is Mati. Mati, who wields the heart ring, that boy got a dark past. Now, in the original animated series, Mati was the heart and soul of the team, both figuratively and literally. Not just because he had the heart ring, but because he was the most morally sound character in the entire group of morally sound characters. And what makes this version of Mati really interesting to me is the fact that, whereas in the original series, he was a nice guy, nice kid, wouldn't harm a fly.
Oh, hail to the queen.
Oh, you wanna
Stop, please! This arguing leads nowhere.
I know. I have seen it. My father's people and my mother's village could not see eye to eye. It cost many their homes, and some even more.
But in this particular instance, this version of Mati has a dark past. Now, under normal circumstances, when you look at stuff like what David Pepose has done with stories like Space Ghost, where he took a story that, for the most part, was largely, pretty normal, average superhero style story. No real craziness going on outside of it just being superhero space shenanigans. But he found a way to update Space Ghost in such a way that you look at it and be like, oh wow, this is just like that old stuff, but it's got some bite to it that it didn't have before. That's kind of what he's done with this. Like, he hasn't taken Mati too far, in a wild direction. But in this particular instance, we see Mati controlling both a vulture, a leopard, and what's very likely a boa constrictor, and controlling them in an effort to attack a worker at this water plant that's literally siphoning water from Mati's village. He's using them to attack this guy. Not really attack so much as pin him down, but there's a point where Mati reveals that now that he has his power, this man should count himself lucky, because he states that yesterday he would have killed this guy. And when he says it, he doesn't just say like, oh, I'm gonna kill you, and like, oh, it's like it's being, you know, hyperbole. He means no. He says, I would have killed you myself. I would have laid you down. You would have went to the upper or lower room, depending on your life's choices. This guy's basically letting you know, I used to be that guy. I used to be that guy. I was the man who knocks. That's basically what he's telling this guy. But he just says he's had a change of heart. Getting this ring has changed something about him. It is softening him up to where I feel like as we go through with this series, while yes, he's going to be the more harder edged of the characters starting off, he's also going to be the character who is probably going to struggle the most with doing what needs done. And I wonder how this is going to play into Monty's personality from the animated series, because for those who don't know, the heart ring did allow Monty to control not just animals, but other people. But he chose not to use the power that way. I wonder if this version of Monty will have those same moral scruples. Yeah, it's something that I think is going to be very important to keep an eye out for. And of course, by the time you get to the end of this issue, the Planeteers all have their rings. Captain Planet can be summoned once more. But for the most part, considering everything that happened earlier in the issue, Captain Planet is out of commission. He got lit up like Alex Murphy in RoboCop by depleted uranium rounds, which for those who don't know, that's basically kryptonite for Captain Planet, which, you know, is kind of funny considering Superman's no longer weak against kryptonite. You don't know, you can check it out up here. But yeah, Captain Planet got laid down at the beginning of this issue. So now by the time you get to here, the Planeteers, they have the rings, they can summon Captain Planet again, and they're going to be facing off with Lucian Plunder first, because he has captured Gaia and they have to get her back. So yeah, this issue is fantastic. It's great. I love everything about this. It looks good. It reads good. All the characters feel like they should, even the ones that have been changed. And I like the updated look for Captain Planet as well as the rest of the Planeteers. I think I think the only character whose look wasn't really changed any at all was Gaia. She looks virtually the same as she did before. But yeah, this is a great book, and I'm going to tell you right now, yes, if you're a fan of Captain Planet, you should go read this book. You should be reading this book because it's fantastic. Even if you're not a fan of Captain Planet, I actually think there's a lot to like here. And I know there's some people that are a little upset because he doesn't look like Don Cheadle. Honestly, well, yeah, that would have been cute. I'm actually kind of glad he doesn't, because I wouldn't be able to take this book seriously.
Anybody else want to go green?
Huh?
Yeah, that's what I thought. Your punk asses. I'm going back up. Don't summon me again unless you're ready for that pain. Peace, dickholes. The power is mine, bitches.
This book is not really a funny book, or, you know, meant to evoke any kind of, you know, overtly, you know, humorous things. This book is more serious than it is not. So yeah, I think honestly, Don Cheadle as Captain Planet would have been distracting at best. So yeah, it just is what it is at this point. If you can remove that Funny or Die skit from out of your head, I think you're gonna be fine. It's kind of the same thing I said to people when Space Ghost was coming out. I always would tell them, if you can just acknowledge that there was Space Ghost before Coast to Coast, I think you're going to be fine. I'm going to say the same thing about Captain Planet. If you can just acknowledge that there was a Captain Planet before Don Cheadle, I think you're going to be okay with this one too.